YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. This is going to be my check-in discussion video on the latest happenings from the Ranger Academy series in issue 6, where we had two primary things that happened that were of significance, one tying to the overall story and mystery of this, and one that brings in a surprising connection to Ranger history, or Ranger future history. First thing I want to talk about, though, is it's funny, I think in last week's, I always say last week's because it's a reflex, but last time I talked about this, I talked about how it's weird that when they show the Ranger stuff, they show the creeper lips moving, and they did that again this week, and someone had pointed out, it was very brief, like it wasn't like he was like, or something, it was just like a little bit like that, I don't know. Anyway, this is the way it makes me feel when I see it. Stop making that face, I don't have to look at it. Someone in the comments of that last video pointed out something that I didn't think about, that they weren't as weirded out by it because it reminded them of Batman Beyond. And I didn't even think about that, honestly. That makes a lot of sense. I think it's just different context because, you know, I'm sure there's some like renderings or fan films, but I've never really seen a live action Batman Beyond outside of a couple figures that are clearly trying, why'd I say figures like that? A couple figures that are clearly trying to look like live action. And it looks weird to me. I'd be curious if we ever do get Batman Beyond live action, how they'll tackle that. I imagine they might just outright ignore it, or maybe you could do like the Deadpool thing where you kind of just see his chin moving a little bit. Regardless, I think it's because like when I'm watching Batman Beyond, I'm immediately viewing it through the cartoon lens where that just looks fine, but if you were to see it in person, you'd probably be wigged out a little bit. But with PR, it's just so weird because your introduction to them is like always, especially when they have the silver thing that highlights it, like boom, creeper lips, and then when they start moving, extra creepy. That was super important to talk about for almost 2 minutes. Let's talk about the revelations about this story first. So this revelation had to do with the Green Ranger stuff, as Sage shared with Tula or Lula, I can never remember which one it is, because this reminds me so much of the High Republic Adventures, and one of the main characters in that is Lula. I think it's Tula in this. Regardless, I might interchange the names, it doesn't matter, I've heard it both ways. So, she confided in her about the Green Ranger stuff, and she takes her to the Lost Green campus and reveals that her sister was a Green Ranger. So the plot thickens. I'm so curious about this because, again, as I mentioned, every time we bring this up, obviously we know that, you know, Green with Evil and the evil Green Ranger is a pretty well-known thing, but also the lion's share of Green Rangers are not evil. I'm going to imagine it has something to do with something that happened at the Ranger Academy specifically. And maybe it's tied to Green with Evil stuff somehow, but it's probably having to do with making new Green Rangers. At least it has to, because you can't retroactively be like, Joel the Sky Cowboy was an evil Green Ranger. Like, come on, son. The other big thing was the reveal, as this issue was about Parents' Week, that Mathis, one of the characters in the show, is actually the child of Nadira and Joe from Hyperforce. You know, because we know she got married to him, and they also have a brother. And like, it's really funny because when they're introducing him to the family, they say like, "Oh, this is my brother," or my younger brother or older brother, depending on when they visit, which is just weebly wobbly, timey-wimey. Like, that blows my mind. Like, so are you saying that like his family will come visit it at different points in their lifetime? That's so confusing because you would think that, at least for the people at the Academy, obviously they're experiencing time from a linear perspective from their point of view. And you think the families would be the same, like when Nadira and Joe dropped Matheson off at the Academy, that then they would chronologically visit them? But that's crazy. Like, so one day, I don't know, that's weird. But that was a cool little reveal. And I like that little, like, lore continuation. It's actually oddly funny how much the lore about Nadira and Joe getting married has continued on through several different comics and been explored. And as a big Hyperforce fan, I like that little connection. We'll see if there's any other connections. I don't need all the Rangers or the characters in this to be related to previous Rangers, but that was a nice, unexpected little beat. And I guess it kind of makes sense looking at them because they do kind of look like a little bit like Joe with like the hairstyle a little bit, and then you got the pink hair. Maybe that was hinted at before and it just flew over my head because after like issue 1 or 2, I kind of like skim read the personal dialogue and try to get to the lore stuff, but anyway. So yeah, this series, as I said before, it's still a decently baseline enjoyable, but I'm mainly in it for the lore nuggets. I honestly think it's more enjoyable than people are giving it credit for. It's not the most engaging thing, and I've said numerous times, and this is an absolute repeated point, I'm only going to bring it up one more time until next time, but I think it would make a great animated series. And when I was reading this in particular, I couldn't help but think, you know, when we brought in lore from Nadira and stuff, and we're bringing in a couple different cameos from other series. I'm like, this actually would make a pretty cool, maybe like soft reboot for the franchise to a younger audience as an animated series, because you could kind of frame it as this new generation of Rangers, but then have all these other little Easter eggs and cameos that would maybe encourage people to check out the larger franchise, and do it in a way where it feels organically part of that story and it doesn't feel like, oh, I missed something. I don't know. I think that could be kind of interesting. But you guys still reading this? Are you enjoying it? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.